Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, hear about technology Ben uses to identify weeds when deciding what herbicides to use. Black cutworm estimated cutting dates are available. Are you scouting your fields? We share insight on corn replant and maintaining yield potential from Iowa State and Purdue University. And happy Mother's Day from everyone at Merschman Seeds.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Ben, Lynn, and Turk. And Ben's got a lot of papers out there, so something's going on. Ben, what's going on?
The thing I wanted to start with first this week is Strip Till Farmer has it's called striptillfarmer.com, and they release podcasts and different things to do with no-till and strip till. And they had a publication here talking about different weed ID and plant ID apps on your phone. And I thought that was kind of interesting, something that I would share with all of our listeners. So they basically rate 6 different of these apps on how accurate they are. And Picture This is the one that I downloaded on my phone because it seems to be 70% accurate when predicting what you're taking pictures of. So 70% accurate, and then they actually, if you include the partially accurate, so they may be in the right species, but they don't have the right the genus. You're exactly correct.
Good job. Are you talking about weeds, or what are you talking about?
Weeds, plants,
anything you want to identify.
Correct, and I'll go over that here in a second. So it's 70% accurate, like correct, when you're identifying the species, and then they have partial correctness, and that takes it up to 90%, and then there's 10% of the time it's incorrect. So I thought that's really handy, especially for farmers that have their own sprayers, and they go out to the fields, and they may not be sure what they're looking at, whether it's this versus that, and which herbicide to use. I thought this was really good because this is a lot quicker than going back to my book that's in my office and scrolling through stuff and trying to figure out what looks like what. So they rated it even further, the Picture This app, they rated it even further, going from ornamental flowering, broadleaf weeds that are flowering, broadleaf weeds that are in vegetation, grass weeds that are in flowering, grassy weeds that are in vegetation, seedling amaranth, seedling for winter annuals, deciduous trees and shrubs, and evergreen trees and shrubs. Where the app has the hardest time telling the difference is the seedling amaranths, the amaranth species. So a lot of, whether it be water hemp, palmer, red root, pigweed, like there's spiny pigweed. There's so many different pigweed species that I could see that look very, very similar. I could see why that is where the app struggles the most. But the good thing when you're looking at that is the active ingredients that you're going to be trying to use to kill water hemp, common water hemp, palmer amaranth, all that stuff. You're going to be using the same actives when you're controlling those. So I thought this was really good. We'll put a link to this in the description, and probably have Alex throw some pictures up while I'm talking about it. But I thought that was a really handy tool that our growers can use to identify weeds when they're out there figuring out what herbicides that they're going to be using, because there's going to be a lot of plans that are changing right now. There's going to be a lot of guys that probably don't get their pre's on the way they want them. They're probably going to have to switch some stuff up to post. A lot of plans are in the changing with the delayed planting that we got going on right now.
Yeah, and the weeds they keep growing even though we don't have things planted, and that's the dangerous part.
Right. The second thing that I had is they have Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois all have their projected black cutworm cutting dates. So we'll have Alex throw the picture of Iowa up here. It looks like the eastern third, the central east portion of Iowa has a May 11th cutting date, which is very soon here. From basically, and how they do the math behind when the cutting date is there is a growing degree unit accumulation. They do sticky traps for fly trap, or for the moth flights, and then they know, we have moths in the area. It's going to take this many growing degree days before we have an instar large enough to start cutting corn plants off. So in the state of Iowa, May 1st in the far east central portion of the state is the earliest. Go ahead and take a look at the map on where you may be in that state for cutting. I also have Illinois pulled up. Southern Illinois has the earliest cutting date on theirs, which was like the 12th of May, so this weekend coming up here. But the central portion of the state's kind of in that 27th, 28th. You can see that. And then in the state of Missouri, they break it off into different quadrants, and you can see the different testing locations and the screenshot here. But the earliest Missouri cutting date would be the 22nd for the southeast zone for their estimated cutting date for black cutworms. So take a look at those and be scouting fields for the corn that is up.
Well, keep in mind if you have Merschman Power Core corn, you might talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So the Power Core trait is a double pro trait plus a herc trait for Lepidoptera species. We get suppression with the herc trait. We don't get total control. We used to get control, but because of resistance and other things that have happened since that trait has been introduced, we do get suppression of it. So there's going to be some nibbling, there may be some cutting, but it will kill off a little bit of black cutworm. So we're a step better than the double pros.
Yeah, double pros, no protection, zero.
Correct. The only other trait that's better on this is if you'd have a Viptera trait for the Lepidoptera cutting species. So we're kind of right there in the middle. We do provide suppression. We are better than double pros, but so it's good.
It's going to depend upon your concentration then.
Pressure levels.
Pressure levels. So you got really high pressure, Power Core's not going to hold up.
Correct. And one of the other things that I was getting calls on this week about was, replant corn. And it's an unfortunate topic to have to talk about, but it is reality. There was some stuff going on in Missouri when I was talking with Bill Wilkinson, and he had some questions for me, and I hadn't found any information until I pulled up this Iowa State article, and I kind of wanted to talk about the time frame from when you plant to what the time frame is when you would have to replant. So when we look at a May 25th or a June 1st planting date, when we look at the optimum stand or the highest percentage from the Iowa State modeling chart here, when we're looking at the highest percent of stand, it falls off really quickly from the May 25th planting date to the June 1st planting date. And this isn't science. This is modeling. This is projection. This is based off many years of data. So you can plant in June and probably maybe have 100% of your APH, but the odds are working against you at some point in time here. So let's say you go out and plant on May 25th for your replant corn. That corn is projected to be 87% of your APH. Now, if I go back and a lot of the corn that was planted around April 15th around here at that, they probably were shoving it in at 31,000. That's 100% of harvest pop. That's 100% of your total yield. You can get down to 20,000 actual plants that are out in the field, and you still have very, very similar yield.
Probability to have the same yield.
Yep, exactly. So
as if you tore it up and replanted.
Correct.
So you have to weigh a thinner stand planted early versus a perfect stand planted later.
Correct.
And see where those lines intersect.
Right. So the May 25th one when I was talking about having that 87% chance, when you go from May 25th to June 1st, if I have a 20 to 23,000 final stand out in the field, that the odds are that you will never be able to outrun that June 1st. So I will take a look at this chart. We're going to have it queued up, and we're also going to have the link to it. But this is what Iowa State is saying, and this is what the odds are for tearing up a stand and starting over once we get to that point.
And those numbers are based on averages over a long period of time. Now, if we have a situation where we're going to be running above average temperatures, which is what we see coming, and not necessarily by the end of May, but in June, you're going to get some catch up on those growing degree units. And so the key is still going to be, as much as possible, get that put in a good seed bed.
Yep.
Don't limit your root system.
Correct. And you led perfectly into that. I wanted to read from University of Purdue. Purdue University says this from multiple years of research. The good news is that modern hybrids are fairly tolerant to populations in general. What this means is that not only will they tolerate high plant populations without dramatic decreases in yields, but they will also tolerate low plant populations without dramatic decreases. Because the yield response to plant population is fairly flat, the economically optimum plant population at harvest is already lower than you probably thought. Based on a $3.50 market price for corn, $240 seed corn, and the average economic optimum plant population for our 83 field trials was only at about 25,500 plants per acre. Marginal return to seed varied plus or minus $1 per acre between 23,500 and 27,250 per plants per acre at harvest. So what that's saying is that our hybrids have the ability to flex. They have the ability to put heavy test weight on. They have the ability to flex in length and girth, and a 20 to 25,000, 27,000 stand where guys may think it's a disaster. At this point in time of the year, it may not be a disaster, and it may be the population that you want to stick out there.
I have two things, and if you're growing short corn, that might not be as accurate as if you're traditional hybrids. And I really think right now, after all this rain, the real yield loss potential is going to come, and maybe you're going to lead into that is we're lost our nitrogen. And so nitrate testing this year is going to be a must.
Yep.
Because there's nothing worse than having a perfect stand of corn and then it starts turning yellow. And then you know how long it takes for corn to respond if you put nitrogen on. So we're going to have to be proactive in seeing where that nitrogen's at, or if we lost it.
You're absolutely correct. And once we get closer to the side dress time frame, we will definitely be talking about that heavier. The question that Bill Wilkinson was also quizzing me on was, what does the non-uniform emergence that we have had because of differences in fodder and differences in tillage and all this stuff, what does that effect have compared to having a perfect stand that's out there? And the closest thing that I could find from university, I think a Precision Plant would probably also have a little bit of information on their website about that unevenness to emergence. But one of the things that I did find here from Iowa State University says that if several 4 to 6 foot gaps occur within the row, yields will need to be reduced. So the numbers that I was talking about from that chart, yields need to be reduced by an additional 5% and compared to a uniform stand. Stand gaps of 16 to 33 inches will only reduce yield by 2%. So if you have a plant that is a full 2 leaf collars behind or 3 leaf collars behind when you do your when we do our net effective stand counts, you basically can count that plant as a 0. Yeah, it may put a nubbin on that you may get, but use that number, that 16 to 33 inch gap, use that 2% loss and include that into your math when it's coming to do your replant statistics, essentially. So
yeah, and you always have to remember, just because you replant doesn't mean you're going to get another perfect stand. You can still run into the problems. So those are tough decisions, and and this is one of the things. When we're glad to help you make those decisions, and the reason why is because I always tell farmers it's not hard for us to make this decision, and they look at me funny, and I go, it's not our money. I said, it's your money, and when it's your money, everything's amped up. It's harder to think logically, and so we're glad to tell you what our opinion is. But at the end of the day, you got to sleep at night, and so whatever you decide, that's what we go by.
I know from a northern perspective here, as we're looking at the large amount of rain that we've had, and I think we talked about it a little bit last week with Kid Frary and the toilet bowl syndrome. We're seeing a lot that actually did end up coming out of it. We got just enough rain, stayed cool enough in our temperatures that we did get some emergence. Now, the conversation that has been is, how has that affected my yield right now? Obviously it had a little bit more stress early in the growing season. We're worried about nitrogen, but I don't get as concerned with that because we have a large section that are all, essentially you have a micro field within your field that all those came up pretty uniformly within that section. Now, in that toilet bowl scenario, there's probably going to be some buffers where the first emerged stuff is going to take away several feet into that, but for the large part, like on our stuff with the terrace bottoms, it's a big enough section that I think as long as we manage it going into V8 to V12 into the reproduction stage to make sure that we're good on our nitrogen and all the other stuff, I'm not quite as concerned. I know we're going to have a yield loss, but I'm not as concerned about seeing this large deviation in the yield, as you go through the field.
Yep.
I always say, farming's tough, and that's because we grow it outside. If we just grow it inside, it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yep.
It's tough. Turk, what do you got?
I was just going to make a comment about the fact that when we're looking at what the conditions are right now, and we talked a little bit about the above normal moisture situation that we're experiencing. It looks like as we go into a La Nina, we're going out of El Nino, going into La Nina. The one thing that is not crystal clear is what the precipitation is going to do this summer. But one thing that does seem to be that everybody agrees on is it's going to be above normal temperatures this summer, which means above normal temperatures with good rainfall creates that greenhouse effect, and all this stuff can catch up in a really big hurry, and things that and fix a lot of problems that may be perceived to be out there. And so I think that's something that we need to make sure that we're considering when we make some of these decisions, is the fact that we can catch up. We know that few years ago we planted in June and still had almost record yields on corn. And so all those things are out there. The drought map this month, or yesterday, that was released was basically no red in Iowa at all, and there's just a few little spots now, and so there's still some dry areas, but there is no extreme drought anywhere in our growing area. So that's a big improvement. It continues to improve every week as we get more moisture and get caught up. So I think those are all things to make sure that we're considering, that there's still an opportunity to grow a record crop out here. And WASDE's going to be coming out with their numbers today, and we'll see what they say. But the main thing to consider about WASDE is that they're just estimates at this point, and they really have no freaking idea any more than you do on what our numbers are going to be this fall. So these are just truly preliminary guesstimates.
Yep. This report is typically a bearish one, isn't it? Because they basically set for trend line or record yield.
They run trend line. They use trend line, and they use their projected planting numbers, which again, we have no idea at this point whether any of that's going to happen. We could see above trend line, or we could see below trend line in some areas. So it's all a crapshoot at this point. But the trade will trade it.
Silver lining this past week was, some farmers caught up on their sales.
Yeah.
Took advantage of the market run up. So even though we couldn't plant, we focused on the marketing part and picked up a few dollars, and that all helped. So, my dad always taught me, everything that's bad, something good is there. There's something good. Sometimes you got to look for it, but there's something good, and that comes out of it. So this bad weather we're having, there's something good, and when we were able to catch up on some of that grain that we hadn't sold yet.
I see July wheat is $6.50 on the board, and December was $7. So.
Yep.
What are you going to do, Ben?
Wait, great now?
Yeah. No, I think there's going to be a lot of wheat that gets put out, and I think I think a lot of our customers are going to be very happy and very profitable with their wheat crop this year.
And cool benefits wheat.
Benefits wheat, yep.
Early in the spring. Well, that brings us to the corny jokes. And this weekend, you better be paying attention, because Sunday is Mother's Day, okay? Mm-hmm. So you better take care of Mom. So I figured we'd focus on Mom today with corny jokes, and I got a lot of them. So, I'm not making fun of Mom, but I'm just trying. Most of this stuff is the real world, okay? Here's what Mom says, or actually a daughter. Daughter and Mom are talking. Daughter says, "Mom, what's it like to have the greatest daughter in the world?" Mom says, "I don't know. Ask your grandma." Okay. What 3 words solve Dad's every problem? What 3 words solve Dad's every problem? Go ask your mother. Okay? Now, another thing. This is kind of like a factoid. Nothing is really lost until Mom can't find it. If she can't find it, it's lost. Okay, what's the difference between Superman and mothers? What's the difference between Superman and mothers? Superman is just a superhero now and then. Moms are superheroes all the time. How many moms does it take to screw in a light bulb? How many moms does it take to screw in a light bulb? 1, obviously. and she has to do it or it won't get done. Why do mothers have to make 2 visits to the optometrist? Why do mothers have to make 2 visits to the optometrist? Because they also have eyes in the back of their head. Mm-hmm. What did the mother broom say to the baby broom? What did the mother broom say to the baby broom? It's time to go to sweep. Okay? All right, almost done here. Son says to mom, "Mom, can I get $20? Mom says, "Does it look like I'm made of money?" Son says, "Well, isn't that what MOM stands for? Made of money?" Mm-hmm. All right. This one here you all got to participate in, okay? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Okay. Justin.
Justin who?
Just in time to say Happy Mother's Day.
That's right.
Happy Mother's Day.
That's right. A very important day. I know my mom always said if it wasn't for us hens, there wouldn't be any roosters. So I think. Anyhow, we hope that your family is safe and healthy, and we get back in the field next week. And thanks for watching. Take care.